Okay, so let's do the stuff that's left. So let's just try adding our debris because we still have to render that. Let's just add it in our terrain here. We're not going to write out a proxy for that. Although you can do it, it saves a little bit of time, but it's a sequence, and I mean it's just an extra step. You can definitely do it. In this case, I'm not going to do it, but for the terrain and these rocks, I mean they were static things. Didn't take too long to write them out anyway. But in some cases, it might make sense to write them out if you know that it's your final asset. You're probably not going to do it if you're still iterating on these things, but if it's like a final asset and you know that that one isn't really going to be tweaked, then it makes sense to make it a proxy, and then you're only going to do maybe material overrides or whatever on it. So that kind of depends on your workflow, but like in a studio environment, it would definitely make sense to do that. Anyway, so let's go into this thing. Let's add in our debris. And let's look at our debris. So our debris is instancing our instance rock. So that's this thing. So we need to add our material to our instance rock. So the thing, we need to enable tessellation. We cannot do adaptive. By the way, maybe we're not going to do tessellation anyway because they're so small that we probably won't see it. Let's just have a look at it. So maybe like select the frame and let's press spray. Okay, I'm just going to turn off bucket mode, by the way. Yeah, those are working. So you can see we have these small elements in the middle. So these are debris. Let's make sure that we have mass deformation blur turned on. It was already blurring by default. I think it does something itself for the blur, but just make sure that it uses our velocity. So yeah, that's our debris. We want that in our terrain render as well. So that should be good. Now let's do our little smoke puff thing that we did on the ground. So for the smoke puff, I guess let's copy and paste one of our ROPs. Let's just make a separate one for that. Call it, I guess, smoke puff. Call it smoke puff. Then what we're gonna do is we want to, let's hide some of our stuff. We want to render our smoke puff, but we also want to mat out some objects. So you can see we have that one, so we want to render that, but we also want to mat out some objects. So let's, what do we want to mat out? Well, we want to mat out our terrain. Let's just select it in here, by the way. So our terrain and our rocks, like that. And then we need mat parameters, because by default these things have a mat setting here. But you can also do it from a general object. So let's make a null, call it mat, drag it in there. And then this will hold our mat settings. So let's go in there and then enable mat. What this does, it creates a holdout for this object. But by default, this probably will not work. So let me just try it out. And we'll probably see that there's going to be an issue. Let's just try it. Oh, by the way, we need to assign a material, of course, first before we start doing this, else it's a little bit hard to see. So let's make a material. call it smoke buff. Delete this thing, make a volume, put them in there, drag up the density a little bit. Plug it in. Let's try again. Right, let's try increasing our light intensity, see if it even does something. Okay, I am going to first remove our matte objects for now, just to make sure that the smoke itself enters. And it doesn't. Okay, so let's have a look. Only our smoke buff, obj, volume. Let's go to an earlier frame, see if that makes any difference. Sometimes you just run in these issues and you sort of have to figure out what is going on. Oh, like we're not looking at our correct camera. So there you go. I just generally leave these mistakes in. Yeah, okay, there you can see. So because you might run into the same issues. So generally like to stuff like to keep stuff like that in. So we have our buff. Yeah, we can sort of, I guess, we don't really need to do that much for our material, but so the buff thing is working. Okay, so now let's add our matte objects back in. So that's going to be the ground, terrain, and the rocks, scattered rocks. Let's see if this actually works by default, because I think we might run into an issue, but maybe not. Yeah, okay, so you can see the issue. You can see it renders the ground, and we put it into the matte. So what's going on there? I mean, doesn't make sense, right? So with a regular object, this would work. But remember, we are using Redshift proxies. And these Redshift proxies have these settings built into the proxy. So we need to specifically tell it to override any settings that are coming from the proxy. So we need to take on override, visibility, and matte. We need to do the same on the rocks, override visibility and matte. And anything you want to override, you need to do on here, if you're using a proxy at least. Let's try again. And you can see now it works. So we have a holdout with our rocks. So if we later then comp this on top, then this should all look perfectly fine. Right, so that's our smoke buff. Now let's just do our embers. Yeah, let's see. I think then we have everything, right? Oh, we still have the background thing. I didn't end up using this in my actual render scene in the final comp, by the way. So I think I'm just gonna delete this, but you could keep it in if you want. I'm just gonna delete it again. Because I didn't really like the way that it looked in the final comp, because it was picking up on some GI and it just looked a little bit weird. It was very dark in general, so I just happened to leave it out. But I mean, for your final scene, you do you, man. I mean, it's your scene, right? So yeah, let's do the embers.